Hey everyone, today as part of our ongoing van life maintenance series, I'm going to be showing you how to change the oil in a 2006 Dodge Sprinter van. This goes for T1N engines, which is the year 2002 to 2006, both of Dodge and Mercedes make. So it's a really simple process. When I was first figuring out how to change my own oil, I knew I didn't want to go to a dealership to get it done because it would have been really expensive. So I went on YouTube and Googled to figure out how to do it. And I didn't really find a video that was too useful. So I'm hoping that this could be a resource and a guide on how to do it step by step if you've never done it before. I changed the oil every 10,000 kilometers and the specs are every 10,000 miles to 14,000 kilometers. I do it a little bit earlier just for peace of mind, honestly. If you have a gasoline vehicle, you're going to be doing it more often than a diesel vehicle, so just make sure to look in your owner's manual and see what's recommended for your specific vehicle, make, and model. Let's check out what we need to get this done. So, down here we've got Mobil 1 OW40 oil. Some people will be nodding and saying this is exactly what they use, and other people will completely disagree. Just make sure to check your owner's manual and see what's recommended. I've used this the whole time I've owned this vehicle. It's a little more pricey, so I only buy it 50% off when it's at Canadian Tire, but it works great for me and I've never had an issue with it, ever. Another thing you're going to be needing is a funnel, pretty self-explanatory. Make sure to just have some rags on hand in case you make a mess. Another thing for messes is you're going to want gloves and just a drop cloth or cardboard to make sure you don't stain your driveway or grass or whatever you're using. To catch the oil, you're going to want an oil pan that's ideally bigger than what I've got. The Mercedes engines hold about 9.5 liters of oil. This is 11 liters, so ideally I want something bigger, but make do with what you've got going. Now, the tools you're going to be needing are an oil filter remover. The Mercedes oil filters are a little bit more difficult to get to, so I've got two things to help me with that. And you're going to need a socket that is 13 millimeters. Yes. 13 millimeters, and you're going to need a socket wrench. One more thing that you're going to need, and it might be helpful to have it, is just an elbow for your socket when you're trying to remove the oil filter cap, and of course an oil filter replacement. You can get these at Canadian Tire, Davenport's, or at the dealership. So first, we're going to pop open the hood. You want to change the oil when the engine isn't hot, it's basically cool, and on a level surface so that you're getting accurate readings. I'm going to set all this up, and then I'll show you guys how to drain your oil. Okay, so I've got my cardboard laid out. Use a drop cloth or whatever you have. I've got my socket with the 13 millimeter socket on the end, and I have my oil pan down below the van. So I'm going to pop under there and we'll show you guys how to crank that loose and let all the oil that's in the engine right now drain into the pan. So when you're going underneath your vehicle, some vehicles might need to be jacked up, but for the most part, Sprinters are pretty simple to slide underneath. I've got my oil pan right here. My bolt is to the side of the oil pan on the vehicle. So when this bolt comes out, because of the pressure, it's going to spray out. So I want to have it placed to the side so that I'm collecting everything. Now I'm going to hop underneath here with my socket, move the pan a bit for right now, just while I'm undoing it enough, and I'm going to loosen it to the best of my ability. Sometimes they might be really tight, and if you've never done it before, it's going to feel especially tight. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Okay, so I'm getting to the last of the thread on the bolt as I undo it. It took a lot of pressure to undo the bolt at first, but the suction will just make it tighter as you drive over time. So use some elbow grease. Now I'm at the last thread, and I'm gonna slowly let it out. Make sure to hold onto your bolt and not drop it into your collecting pan. So while that's draining, I'm just gonna quickly clean off the bolt that was holding the oil in the first place, just so that when I put it back on, it's nice and clean. And while that's continuing to drain, we're gonna change out the oil filter. So let's head up to the top. So when taking off the oil filter, I have this oil filter remover that changes to the size of your oil filter cap. Mine isn't too hard to take off, I just felt it. It was pretty well tightened, but my hand could take it off. If you run into problems, use one of these or find the exact size of your oil filter cap and purchase a remover for that. So I'm gonna go in here and show you guys where the oil filter is. You got your pipe here, and it's really simply just in here. I can reach my hand and turn it. Really simple. So I'm just gonna turn that until it's loose enough. Some oil might leak out the edges, that's okay. Just do your best to keep it clean and have paper towel nearby. So it's really heavy because the oil's still in the filter, and I'm gonna let that drain into the oil filter pipe until it feels light enough to take out without making too much of a mess. So once that's leaked off enough, we're gonna pull it out, and that's what your oil filter looks like while it's on the cap. When it's in the engine, it goes in this way. Now we're gonna come down here and I'll show you guys what to do with this. So, first off, just wipe a little bit of the excess oil away, and then pull off this oil filter. Put it in the garbage directly or in a paper for later. Set this to the side. Now we're not done with this. There are 3 gaskets, one right here, one in the middle, and one at the end, that go along the oil filter cap, just to make sure that there are no leaks. When you buy a new oil filter, there will come with probably 6 gaskets, just options for you depending on the filter size and oil filter head size. You might need a little knife to pry these off, or just cut them in half and we'll take them off. Pretty simple. So first I'm going to take off this big gasket, which is down here. It's really simple to pry off. Throw that in your garbage pile. Next off is the gasket that's in the middle. Just pry that one off. It's a little bit harder as they small up in size. And that goes in the garbage as well. And then last but not least is this tiny baby gasket. And that one goes in the garbage as well. So you can see here I've got all my new gaskets that came with the oil filter. I'm gonna rip that open with ungreasy hands, hopefully, and put the new ones on. So we've got one big one. This one goes at the bottom here. And there, you'll see, there's a space for it to fit into. It fits perfectly in that space. Same goes with all the other gaskets. Referring back to the ones that I'm throwing out, I'm just going to make sure they're the same size so I've got the right gaskets and no leaks are happening. So this is my bad gasket, which really isn't bad. You could probably reuse these. And this is the new gasket. So I slide that onto here. Get my hands a little dirty because these gloves are way too big for me. Oh gosh. There we go. And then I'm also going to grab the smallest baby gasket and just compare and make sure those are the same size again. And this one just goes on the end here. And as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3 new gaskets. So this is the new oil filter, and I'm gonna slide it on here. And we're good to go. Now we can reinstall that back into the oil filter cap. So I'm going to take this here, flip it over, try not to spill any oil that's left in here, and just simply screw it back on as tight as I can with my hand, and then I might grab the socket and tighten it even more. So I've gotten that really tight on there now. I'm not too worried about tightening it to the max, or else I'll just have a really difficult time getting it off next time I need to take it off. So I'm going to leave that there and maybe come back to it and just tighten it by hand again. Okay, so we've got the filter back on and replaced, which is a really simple part. Now we're just going to take that bolt that goes on the actual oil pan of your vehicle that you've cleaned and install it back in. Check to make sure all your oil has drained out. You might get a couple little dribbles, and generally diesel oil is going to be a little bit darker than gasoline oil. So just do your best to drain it, and if you want, you can flush oil through. It's completely up to you, but personally, I just let it drain for as long as I can, and then install this back on. So now you're going to grab your socket, and on the back of your socket there will be a little direction changer. I don't know what the actual technical term for that is, but you're going to flip it to the opposite way that you had it when you were taking that bolt off. We're going to come under here with the socket and crank it hand tight. When you feel it's really firm, that is good enough. That should be perfect. So we've emptied everything, we've changed the oil filter, we've done up the oil pan bolt, hand tight, cranked it really firm. So everything is tightened, we don't want any oil leaking. When we take our funnel, find the oil cap on top of the engine. It's really easy to see. And then put the funnel inside the hole. Just take a second, double check, make sure everything's done up so nothing is leaking. What I'm actually going to do is hand crank this again to make sure I'm confident it's done up. It's not budging, it's ripping my glove, so we're good. So on my Sprinter, I use 2 of these 4.73 liter oil jugs. So I know that when I'm pouring in the first one, I can just pour it into the engine, all of it, without worrying about the level. But once we get to the second one, I'm going to be stopping periodically to check the dipstick and see where my oil level is at. So the first oil jug is in. Now I'm going to pour roughly half of the second one in and then check the dipstick to see the levels, and we'll go from there. But just take your time, because you don't want to have too little oil and you don't want to have too much oil. So what we'll do again is pull this out, wipe it off, stick it back in, and now, as you see, it's almost halfway. We want it halfway, so I'm going to pour a little bit more oil in there. Not much at all. So I filled up the oil to a level that I'm happy with, and I'll show you guys what that looks like on the dipstick. When you pull it out, it's kind of difficult to see, but it's between the minimum and the maximum line. And then I'm just going to put that back in. And one of the final steps in finishing off this oil change is taking out the funnel, grabbing your oil cap, tightening that on. Now, stop everything you're doing, make sure your oil filter is tight, make sure your bolt on the bottom oil pan is as tight as you can get it. Close this, stick your dipstick back in, everything's closed off so nothing's going to leak, and you're going to turn your car on, or vehicle back on, for 1 minute approximately. Let the oil get everywhere in the engine, lubricate everything up, and that will lower your oil level, and then we'll go through it again. So the vehicle's been running for 1 minute. Now I'm going to check the dipstick again. Clean it off the first time because it's been sitting in there. And as you can see, it's way lower than it was before. So I'm gonna fill that up until I'm happy with the level again. So I've checked my dipstick for the last time. I'm happy that it's in between the minimum and the maximum exactly. Now I'm gonna clean up. What you need to do is grab your old oil can and just pour your old oil into here. You can drop these off at your local dump, and I'm pretty sure most places will take these for free because they don't want them anywhere else but the landfills. So dispose of these properly, please. And that's it. Please leave a thumbs up if this helped you out. We'd love to hear if you have any oil changing tips for the community. And have a great week, guys. I really hope that this helped you get ahead and know what to do to maintain your vehicle yourself.